Journals of the Information Entrepreneur. I'm Jacqueline Stockwell, CEO and founder at Leadership Through Data. And I'm here today with James Powell. So I'm super excited about that. I empower and inspire information leaders across the world to change their messaging and to be heard, to focus on themselves and put professional development at the heart of what they do. I have revolutionized and continue to improve the way information management training is delivered globally. As an international speaker, with every presentation I deliver, people can expect to be inspired, motivated, move their bodies and do fun things. But most of all, I want people to attend, to be learned, to be inspired and grow their minds. So welcome today, James. As I said, I'm thrilled to have this. This is the 5th episode of our Behind the Role series. Now, just tell me about you. Who is James?
So I'm James Powell, and I am currently a digital records manager with the Competition and Markets Authority. But I've worked for two other government departments before this. So I've been involved in records management for about 10 years now.
Thank you very much. And what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
So outside of work, I do a lot with the Scouts, with volunteering.
Nice.
So I like to work with young people. So got a very exciting year of events supporting our future generation.
Oh, I love that. So you're an outdoorsy person as well then?
Yeah, I try to be.
Beautiful. I love that. So you said you've been in the records management for about 10 years. So what inspired you to get involved in Microsoft 365 as a records manager?
Um, Yeah, so I had recently taken on a new role with a greater focus on digital records. So I started out taking some responsibility for managing records in our current SharePoint, which was on premise, when the organization decided to move to Microsoft 365. The manager I had at the time asked if I'd be interested in taking a leading role on records management in 365, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to boost my technical skills, develop some soft skills which I'd need for progressing in my career. So I thought it was a good opportunity.
I love that. And can you say what challenges did you face?
So I suppose the biggest challenge I had to start with was I knew very little about Microsoft 365. So I had to get up to speed quite quickly. So I attended one of your training courses initially, which gave me a good grounding and some hands-on experience I could take back then. My second challenge was confidence. So this was really the first time I was really responsible for something that would have quite a long-lasting impact and carry a fair level of risk across the organisation. So, but luckily I had a good support network around me with my managers and my team, which I could use as like a sounding board, so I could discuss my concerns and check my thinking then. So yeah, that's
That's brilliant. And I know you're one of our first ever sort of customers to do on our face-to-face records management Microsoft 365. And I'm so pleased that gave you a really good foundation. But you talked about your confidence. Like, how did you gain confidence?
yeah. I think once you start getting into it and you start talking to people and you deliver what you know and you get that good feedback from people, I think that helps your confidence, or you realize that you know what you're actually talking about. And then when you see it come into fruition, you can sit back and say, "Oh yeah, this is working well," and that helps you then for the next step, because you do have that boost then that you are actually doing quite well at it. Or
Doing a good
yeah, so
job,
that really
yes.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've articulated that really well because it explains it nicely. You get sort of the training, the grounding, the basis, and then you start to apply it, and then you kind of grow and learn from
Yeah,
things.
yeah. It's a continuous learning circle.
Love that. Yes, learning. Love learning. I'm all about professional development. So, did you make any mistakes along the way, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think assuming that people understand what you mean. So I think when you're immersed in records management every day, and especially when you've been in it for quite a while, you assume that everyone else understands terms that you perceive as normal, and maybe they don't know it, and you might see it as fairly simple, but it's just not something that they're used to or things. So I think to overcome that, I had to sort of adapt the language I used when talking to users and talking to stakeholders, and sort of resetting the assumption that perhaps they know nothing and starting from the ground. And once you've sort of started speaking to them, you can get a sort of feedback to what level they are. And then you can adapt how you talk to them and how you deliver things to them at the level that's best for them. And then I think seeking feedback so if you do a delivery session, seeking feedback from them afterwards, and then using their feedback is a great way to then adapt the next time you do it. So that your first engagement is effectively your worst, and then it gets better as you get through.
Yeah, absolutely. Like magic mistakes, you learn from them, what happened, feedback, grow, and ensure it doesn't happen again. So I think that's beautiful. When you talked about, you were talking around the acronyms and more simple languages to
Yeah,
different sets of people. Did you also find that you had to change kind of the way you communicated with them as well? So there was like different styles that you had to use or different techniques?
yeah, I think so. So you've got obviously, I think when you're working on like a 365 project, you've got quite a technical team. So you got your IT teams and that. So they like very technical language. They like to know the fine detail of how it works. When talking to users, they're more concerned about how it affects their everyday work. And I think using a mix of things like using different communication tools, like putting announcements out on like internet posts and things like that, and then holding face-to-face or virtual engagements where you can actually speak to them and answer questions in the moment works quite well, especially with the end user who will have more questions of how it's going to affect their everyday work
Yeah.
and their everyday life. So yeah, I think you do have a different style depending on what users you're speaking to.
Yeah, I do agree. You were also sort of part of a change management project. Did you introduce change management when you were doing the
Yeah,
sessions?
I think so. As part of it, it was changing a way we worked. So there was lots of engagements about how we currently work, how we're going to work, how we're getting there, why we're going there, and then sort of addressing their concerns because a lot of it is that people get embedded in the same way of working for many years. They're comfortable, so you're then asking them to change the way they're doing it. They don't always see why they're doing it. So I think explaining to them what you're trying to achieve and highlighting how it's actually going to help them as well. It's not all about records management, people saying no and trying to force with it. It's helping them work in a more efficient way or being able to find that information or making their life easier and embracing the new technology.
That was great. And kind of what resources or tools did you find most useful?
So doing the training course of yourselves was quite useful to start with. That gave us a good grounding. And a good hands-on experience of actually using the system, applying the policies, things like that. And there's also many blogs out there, and there's consultants like Joanna Klein and Andrew Wallen do post regular, and they have some really good information and infographics and that, which are quite good to understand the bits that are not necessarily clear, and things like that. I think attending conferences like the IRMS conference or their events, you get people giving good presentations there, but also gives you the opportunity to network and learn from others who have been through it themselves, who are going through it. So quite important to learn what they've done wrong or what problems they've come across. But also Microsoft publish quite a lot of documentation and that's always been updated. So it's far better now than it was, say, 5 years ago. But they also run webinars and training events, which often are free or included in your licensing. So they're quite useful. So I think a combination of them all is quite good. But I think speaking to other people in other organizations, especially ones that are similar to you, and saying what have you done, how have you done it, what problems you've had, and then just learning from them is pretty important and probably the most useful thing you can do.
Yeah, I definitely like hands down to everything like that. A lot of people think training is just around buying courses, but actually training is blogs, webinars, conferences, all the things you just suggested. And one of the big things that I'm a founder of is getting everybody talking because you can learn from other people, you can learn from mistakes. Yeah, great professional tool. So I do remember when I first saw you and I asked you, did you know about Microsoft 365? And you said you had some understanding. So you must have done some more of that sort of groundwork first
Yeah,
before taking that leap.
yeah, I'd spoken to a couple of other government departments before to see how they were approaching it, and yeah, and a bit of background research really.
Yeah, good. So how do you think your previous role and your previous experience as a records manager actually helped you understand Microsoft
Um,
365?
well, I think being a records manager, you know the need for good information architecture and governance, and know how you should be managing that information. So for me, that meant I could easily translate that into our requirements for how we wanted to use 365, how we had to govern it. It helps you visualize how it may work across the different solutions and which tools in Microsoft are the best to do that with. I also think it puts you in a good position to bridge the gap between the technical teams and the project teams and the business, and then translating their user needs then into it. So to give a greatest adoption and to make sure that everyone is sort of like got an input into it. And I think from my experience, it does help.
So was there any like particular specific moments in the projects where you utilized your new skills and you were just like, yes, this is awesome?
Yeah, I think there's a few examples of it. So I think often, as I said, there's often a divide between IT teams and information government teams. So there's sometimes conflicting ideas. So the need to balance governance against adoption and using all the tools. So I think having the skill set and working in knowledge of 365 made that easy to manage, so able to communicate between both like the records management side and IT in their relevant technical languages, so they could understand. And that just sort of helped collaboration. I think without that, it wouldn't have been as successful because you would have been at odds to each other. So I think that's good. I think also as part of this, I was able to raise my profile across sort of communities in the organisation, which help with engagement and help build that trust between different stakeholders so that people were comfortable to talk to you about issues, or you were able to push back in a constructive way, and keep our project moving and gain the consensus and all the compromises you need to do. Yeah, building that trust sort of helped.
Yeah, brilliant. And I like the way you kind of, said about raising the profile. So it's definitely raising our personal profiles to the business to get that engagement. And I think that's a really key thing that we need to do more of
Yeah.
in terms of professional development going forward. So how did you feel about taking on this challenge? Like, I kind of want to talk about like before and maybe afterwards.
Oh yeah, so nervous but excited, I would say. So I think, as I said earlier, it was taking the lead um, on the RM side, the records management side. Was quite a responsibility. So I was nervous that I didn't get things right. There could be some widely affecting problems that the team would have to deal with. However, I was excited as it was a chance for me to take on more of a lead and shape something with a wider reaching impact. So pretty much the same reasons why I was nervous was the reason why I was excited, and developing my expertise, and to move into a more specialised area then was um, was a good thing. I think afterwards, um, I felt more confident. Like I went on and presented the case study at the IMS conference, which was another big thing for me. So I'd not done public speaking is not my forte, I wouldn't say. So taking on that step of being asked to do a presentation and then doing one, I think particularly as for this one, it was very popular and there was a lot more people involved,
Yes.
or coming in than I was expecting. Particularly nerve wracking as well, as some of the Microsoft developing team were actually there as well. So it was a bit um,
It's a big job for you.
big job, yeah. But yeah, I think it boosted the confidence and it's allowed me to then go on and do other projects and things onwards, which possibly I wouldn't have tried otherwise.
Yeah. I just think your journey is amazing, James, and obviously that's kind of why I wanted to have a chat with you today about it because, I've kind of watched you grow from the back, and then when you were at the conference, and I know Sarah Fenner went to your session and said it was really good,
Yeah.
and how you kind of articulated the story and your case study. So, great achievements, and so like. How, if you wanted to have any more challenges now or take on extra stuff, how would you approach that?
So I think in like if I speak about like what I'm doing in my current
Yep.
organization. So when I started, I sort of took a benchmarking exercise. They already had 365 in place. I'm not fully rolled out, but majority of the things like SharePoint, the teams and everything were in place. So really benchmarking it to identify more effective and efficient ways to manage the information. So I've gone on and presented this to the business as like a development plan with my team on how we envisage 365 to look in the future. And as part of that, we've been building new sort of architecture for the governance side and been involved in the current ongoing Purview project. So using all that prior experience really, and I think having that prior experience is being able to go to the IT teams here and demonstrate that I know what I am talking about and have the experience, and it's put us in a good position because it also means we're having that to rely so much on external sources, and I've been able to help train my team to get them up to more speed in the 365 environment. So I think that all of that has really benefited me and hopefully the organisation.
And then definitely, so it's personal growth and organisational growth because you grow, the organisation grows at the same time. So, what advice would you give to somebody who's new into records management? They're starting their Microsoft journey.
So I've got a few points I would say on this. So one, it's a team effort. So know your stakeholders. It's not all about IT. It's not all about KIM or records management. It's about everything. It's about users, people you engage with externally. Yeah, so know your stakeholders, know who you need to speak to, know what they want, learn how you need to approach them. Undertake some training, see it in action. There's lots of opportunities out there, even if you haven't got the budget. There's webinars and blogs and stuff and things you can do in your own time and do it alongside your other work. No problem. Speak to those who've done it before. I think that's where you probably learn the most. You'll get real life insights from it, and you'll learn about the mistakes and the issues they come across. And quite often they'll speak quite frankly, which if you go to like formal training, you might not see that side of it. Particularly if it's being delivered by a provider, they're less likely to gloss over things that have gone wrong. So speaking to people who've been through it is definitely a key takeaway I would do. Test it out. So do a proof of concept. So try it somewhere. You haven't got to worry about if it goes wrong. And I think the other one is to walk, don't run. It's Microsoft 365 is huge. It's growing all the time. So I think it's important to know you haven't got to tackle it all at once. You can sort of like do it in stages and do it bit by bit. And don't be afraid to change your approach or use different approaches. And that would be my, yeah.
Brilliant advice. So, what's the one thing that listeners you give to them to take away from what we've chatted about today?
I think I'm gonna go speak to people, just learn from other people, hit people up and ask them the question like, what do you do? How do you do it? And because doing that, you'll gain that knowledge from it, but you'll also build an ongoing relationship so you can carry on speaking to them over many months and years, especially if you find people who are on a similar journey to you, so you can sort of share from both sides. And I think that really, really does benefit people.
Thank you. And how can listeners find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on there. So yeah, find me on there and message me. That's fine.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for everyone for listening, and stay tuned for some more Journals of the Information Entrepreneur. Thank you. Cheers, James.
Okay. Yes.